and do some word problems with them. So here we have the temperature change over 3 hours. Okay, but how much higher or lower than the first hour was the final temperature? Okay. So we don't know what the temperature was, we just want to know what the total change was. So we need to add them up. 2.3 plus negative 4.5 plus negative 2.7. Okay. I don't mind if you use your calculator for that. Go ahead. Before we start, if I said estimate, what would you do? No, not guess. Who said guess? That's the horrible word. Yes, Taylor.
You would turn them all into full numbers instead of the decimal.
Yeah. 2 minus 5 minus 3. Just quickly round them. Okay. So left to right, 2 minus 5 is negative 3. Negative 3 minus 3. We're going to be somewhere around negative 6. Okay. Now go use your calculator. See if the answer makes sense. Now I sure hope you didn't put all that into your calculator. What you should be doing is you should be going 2.3 minus 4.5 minus 2.7. You should be correcting your sign. Sec. Negative 4.9. There we go. All right. Here we go. The daily changes in price for a share of the Abbotsford Heat are as follows. Okay, the price of the share was $58 at the start. What was the change in price? Just like the first question. Here's your changes. You're going to add up the changes to see what the total change was. So negative 2.78 plus negative 5.45 plus positive 0.38 plus positive 1.38 plus positive 2.12. Correct your signs. Now the interesting thing now is some of you didn't bother writing that down and you really struggled on the quiz because you're not used to seeing this format. So why wouldn't you write it down? It's like practice. Go ahead, correct your signs. What do we have? Xander? Positive or negative? Positive 1.21. Anyone else confirm? What'd you get, Meaty? You sound a little unsure. Anyone else? Share your answer. Share your answer. Yes, Emma?
I got negative 4.35.
Negative 4.35. Got 1 point something?
Yeah.
Okay. Check your sign right here, Sandra. Okay. Okay, so it sounds like Mr. Barker needs to do this one. Make sure you start the negative number. Okay, so we got to be careful on the calculator. Negative 4.35. Is that the second time? Yeah, it's just a sign we missed. I bet you it's the $5 one. Okay.
I did.
Just be careful with your signs on the calculator. That's all. What does that mean? Yeah, they lost money that week on the shares. Okay, so they went down in price. So what we're going to do is add the change to the price. We start with $58.22. We'll add the change, and most of you are thinking what? Oh, you just subtract it. Yeah, exactly. But if it was an increase, you wouldn't subtract it, would you? You'd add it. So technically, we are adding the change. Okay, that's the technical part, which you can take the shortcut with and sell yourself short. No problem. Okay. Final answer, $53.87. Now, does that answer make sense? As in S-E-N-S-E. Well, it does, because the price went down. We started at 58, we're at 53, price went down. Like, double check your work, okay? Now, what's the total change in value if a person owned 80 shares? Okay, so what we have to do is multiply the number of shares by the change. Okay. So how stocks work, if you own 20 shares and say the price went up by $2, then that means you gained $40 if you sell your shares. Okay. For us, though, we had a loss. So this person owns 80 shares. Each share lost. So a negative sign. I'm going to highlight that. Okay. Times the change is a negative number, $4.35. Okay. Now obviously I multiply by a positive and then add my negative sign at the end. Okay. So this person lost $348 that week. Rough week. Okay. Yeah. So many get out of those shares. All right. Any questions so far? Okay, next one. Use a diagram to help you. Okay, hours for special games. Read the question, underline important stuff. Go. Okay, so the first 100 meters happened. Here's 100 meters. And he's ahead 0.25 of a second. Okay. Then he lost 0.7 seconds, so minus 0.7 seconds at the 200 meter mark. Then at the third, he lost another 0.125 seconds. Okay. And for the fourth, right here, he gained 0.5 seconds. Okay. So let's total these changes up to see whether he's ahead or behind. So 0.25 plus negative 0.7 plus negative 0.125 plus positive 0.5. Okay, so negative 0.075 seconds. Okay, read the last sentence, answer the question carefully. Here is that he must gain more than, that's some key words, more than 0.075 seconds. Okay? Because if he just gains 0.75 seconds, what just happened? Tied. Okay? So be careful with a word problem like that. They might throw that curveball at you. Okay, next one. Number 4. Have a read. Underline the important stuff. Go. So a couple things. How much less? Find the difference. Okay. So what we're going to do is you can find the difference at the end or at the beginning. We're going to find it at the beginning. Okay. So we're going to take 8.3 liters per 100 kilometers. And we're going to subtract 6.6 liters per 100 kilometers. Okay. So the difference in fuel consumption is 1.7 liters per 100 kilometers. I kind of wrote it like a fraction, didn't I? For a specific reason. It can help us find the answer we need. The problem is we got to drive 450 kilometers. So how much fuel is needed? Well, an equivalent fraction can help us. What will we do to 100 to get 450? Taylor? Taylor? You're right, times it by 4.5. So equivalent fraction idea means we have to do the same thing to the top. Okay. Sometimes writing equivalent fractions can really help us. Victoria? Okay. So this means that we would use 1.7 times 4.5, 7.65 liters. Okay. Now the cost is $1.07 a liter. So we go $1.07 times 7.65 liters. What does that equal? Yeah, so make sure you round. $8.19. Okay, so $8.19 less. Okay, that's the cost difference. Okay, so driving the car saves you $8. Now, what we could have done is could have found the total costs. So we could have found one to be like $18.19. The car would cost us $10, and then subtract at the end. You could have totally done that. Probably a little bit more work though. Okay, but it's up to you on where you want to do your subtraction. I always like to do mine earlier, but again, it's no problem doing it at the end. Questions? Okay. Next one. What does mean mean? What's the mean mean? What's the mean mean mean?
Average.
Yeah, average. So it's just the math term for average. How do you find the average of something? Kevin? Kyle?
You add all the numbers divided by numbers.
Good. So total, okay, the sum or the total, add them all up, divide by the number of numbers. Okay. So go ahead, find the average, find the mean. Now, it's important when you're doing this on your calculator that you get a grand total on the top. Otherwise, the common mistake is to actually do this. 1.45 plus 1.72 plus 1.26 plus 1.36 divided by 4. So if you're doing it on your calculator, you don't want to end up just dividing the last number by 4. Find a value for the top of the fraction. Okay, so you actually want to find a value. Otherwise, you're using a calculator around. Now all you have to do is press equals. It's a very simple thing to do. Okay, so 5.79. So I always get in the habit of doing this just so I don't get a wrong answer, because it's such an easy thing to make this simple error. Then divide by 4, and so the average is $1.45 per liter. Okay. You want to include units when you're doing word problems, or simple sentence, something like that. Any questions? Okay, the next one's a weird one, but it's helpful to understand mean. Have a read, underline important stuff. Go. This one, let's start writing this out before you start touching your calculator. You gotta have an X somewhere. So you're adding up the temperatures. There's Hope, 13.6. Agassiz, 14.5. Bridal Falls, 15.2. Rosedale, 14.8. Harrison Mills, 14.3. And the mean temperature is 14.6. What's the temperature of Yarrow? So Yarrow will be plus X. How many cities were there? 6. Okay, we got to include Yarrow in that division. So that's a little weird. So the question's worded funny. Don't forget about Yarrow. We're trying to find Yarrow's temperature. Okay. Yeah, Jamie.
Do you put Jim plus X too, or you just leave it?
Leave it. Okay, so let's just watch this and see what's going on. Now, after we do our algebra unit, this question will be a walk in the park. Right now, we haven't done it, so it's a little weird. Let's add all those numbers up first. Okay, so 13.6 plus 14.5 plus 15.2 plus 14.8. So we had 72.4 plus X, all divided by 6, equals 14.6. Okay. So what we're going to do, instead of dividing by 6, we're going to bring up a multiply. So we're going to get 72.4 plus X equals 14.6 times 6 equals 87.6. And how do we get X by itself? Instead of divide, you bring up the multiply. Cross multiply? Nope. Let me show you a different way in a second, okay? So you'd subtract, and see at 15.2 degrees. Okay. Now again, we haven't done algebra, so I kind of get that this is a little weird. What's 14.6 is a weird fraction? 14.6 over 1. Okay. So to get them to be equal, you times this one by 6. You get 72.4 plus X divided by 6 equals 87.6 over 6. Since they're both over 6, their tops will be equal as well. So then you're going back up to this statement here. And that's algebra and why we need to learn it. Any questions? I think you have one question like that. It's not a big deal. All right. Give it your best shot. See what you can do. Okay? Don't freak out on me.